Kristi Noem needs to be stopped. If she won't resign or Trump won't remove her, we must continue the process of impeachment. What we've witnessed in recent weeks in Minnesota and in the disturbing footage surrounding the killings of Alex Preddy and Renee Good should shock the conscience of every American. Those videos show unspeakable tragedy, but they also show something deeply troubling. A federal agency telling the American people one story while a very different reality plays out on camera. This administration has failed to tell the truth to the American people. We're here because it's failed to uphold constitutional rights. We're here because it's failed to build trust in our communities. In fact, it's shredding that trust. There must be a full and independent investigation into these killings, and DHS cannot investigate itself. Where criminal conduct is warranted, there must be criminal investigations, and Congress must intensify its oversight immediately, because accountability is not optional in a democracy, regardless of whether your party happens to be in power. Let me also be clear about something important. The overwhelming majority of law enforcement officers in this country serve with professionalism, restraint, and honor. Here in San Diego, our local police and sheriffs operate under clear rules. They're accountable to the people that they serve. They don't hide from oversight. That's how public trust is built, and that's how public safety works. Federal law enforcement must be held to that same standard. But right now, under Kristi Noem's leadership, ICE is not even close to meeting that standard. We've seen repeated documented cases of excessive force, mistaken detentions, and enforcement actions affecting U.S. citizens and lawful residents. We've seen oversight delayed, obstructed, and resisted, including right there in that building. It's the predictable result of leadership that has chosen aggression over professionalism, secrecy over transparency, and political obedience over the rule of law. I believe in secure borders. I believe violent criminals should be deported. I believe enforcement matters. That's why ICE was created after September 11th, to protect national security and public safety. But enforcement only works when it is grounded in integrity and the rule of law and public trust. And it must always be paired with humanity. My grandparents came to this country from Mexico as teenagers in the early 1900s. They had no money and spoke no English. They came here with determination and faith in America. They built a small business. They raised 5 daughters. They believed in this country, and their youngest grandson now serves in the House of Representatives. That's how America is supposed to work. And I asked myself whether families like my mom's would even be welcomed in Donald Trump's America. Because what we're seeing now is not targeted enforcement. It's enforcement driven by numbers, not safety. Here in San Diego and Imperial Counties, nearly 5,000 people were detained by ICE last year. More than half had no criminal record. That's not focusing on dangerous criminals, that's chasing quotas. And when agencies are pressured to produce numbers, that means corners get cut, oversight gets blocked, mistakes multiply, and innocent people get hurt. And that's exactly why congressional oversight exists. And I want to say this again. Members of Congress are legally allowed to inspect detention facilities, including this one, without notice. That authority exists to protect human beings in government custody. So when access to this building was delayed again and again, that should concern every San Diegan. And when we finally got inside after weeks of stalling again, most detainees were gone. And that should concern you as well. But instead of fixing these problems, Republicans are trying to hand ICE another blank check. Because of what they did with their one not so beautiful bill last summer, the federal government is committing an unprecedented amount of resources to ICE, tripling its annual resources to nearly $30 billion. That level of spending places ICE's annual funding in the same league as the military budgets of entire nations, on par or higher than the defense budgets of Canada and Spain, and closing in on Italy and other major NATO countries. When an agency charged with enforcement has a budget bigger than the major national militaries around the world, we have to ask, is this still about public safety or something much broader? Where are the guardrails? Where are the accountability structures that need to be in place? And that gets me to Scott's bill, which we have to pass. We've got to pass that bill. And I will tell you that many of the measures in his bill we tried to bring up as amendments in the Appropriations Committee. and every single time they were voted down. In addition to all the ones that Scott said, one that was particularly egregious in appropriations, they wouldn't agree to an amendment that would prohibit U.S. citizens from being deported and detained. That's how shameless, that's how cowardly they are behaving in this moment. Again, the original mission of ICE to protect public safety and national security is being torn to shreds. This is not about left versus right. It's about right versus wrong. It's about whether federal power is exercised responsibly, whether taxpayer dollars are used to protect people or to endanger them. And we've got to put a stop to this.